Hi everyone, Fire Plays here and welcome back to another YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, we are hopping back onto Team Maker today, alright guys? Haven't been on here for a little while, and today we're going to be ranking how your team went in the pre-season, alright guys? So we're going to be, I don't know whether we're going to rank just AAMI Community Series. I reckon we're going to go the whole pre-season, so 2 games, which means pretty much if your team went very good, 2-0, some very good, classy, unexpected wins, you go very good. If your team was good, expected 2-0, good. 1-1 would be okay. Bad would be 0-2, and very bad would be like you got smashed both games. So but we're also going to be looking at how well some teams did. So we're going to be going in alphabetical order. Just going to be ranking where your team finished. So for the Adelaide Crows, I'm going to put them in bad. The pre-season probably didn't go the way they wanted it to. Obviously getting smashed against the Lions, putting up a fight against the Power, but not getting there in the end. Yeah, it was probably a disappointing pre-season for the Crows, to say the least. Now, for Brisbane, they had a good pre-season, so they obviously were signalled to beat the Crows, and that did happen. And they actually got a nice win over the Western Bulldogs as well at Marvel. So that could probably be that could be the thing that could make them go up to very good. I'm keeping them at good though, just because they were very good. I must say they were very good, but just because the win against Adelaide was already meant it was going to happen, I'm putting them in good, as it wasn't 2 absolutely shocking wins that was the thing. Now, for Carlton, they're going to go up into very good. Now, I know you guys might be like, oh, Carlton aren't a good team. Well, I reckon they could be this year. Maybe not a top 8 team, but they will probably get close to contending for top 8. And they'll probably get top 8 next year. Now, the thing that was good about Carlton is that they managed to get a winning over the Saints. Now, again, I could easily put them in good, but I'm going to put them in very good as they managed to win over Melbourne. Now, again, most Melbourne supporters would be saying this is just a fluke. It's nothing to get worried about, and it really isn't, I don't think, for Melbourne fans. But I just think Carlton were very good. They got 2 probably shock wins, I think. Most people would have tipped the Saints and the D's. But, yeah, Carlton were very good. Now, for Collingwood, their first AAMI Community, well, they had the Giants, and then they had Hawthorn, so I'm going to put them in okay. Okay, I'm going to put them in okay, because obviously smashing the Hawks with the regular A team, and then coming up and putting up a disappointing performance against the Giants. They actually hung in there for 3 quarters, so I'm going to put them in okay. I think they were okay. They didn't have the worst, they didn't have the best. But yeah, they put up a very commanding fight over the Hawks, and then the Giants, they just, were not very good. Now, also in okay, I'm putting the Bombers. Now, obviously, they won a match against the Western Bulldogs in the first week, which was a big upset. And then the second week, they came and flopped out against Saints, and they just left it pretty much. They just did not win. They were there, but didn't really do anything being there. Now, obviously, that's a bad thing for the Bombers. So they finished 1-1 after the pre-season. Not a bad start heading into the year, but yeah, it could be better. Now, for Fremantle, I'm going to put them into very good as well. Now, this was the pre-season that they needed. They needed 2 wins. Now, obviously, both games they were playing West Coast. Now, the first one, they got 97-point win. That was the first match. So, that automatically gives them a very good spot. Anyway, obviously, depending on the next week, which was a 13-point win over the Eagles, and they still were playing very classy, so I'm happy to put them into very good. Now, for Geelong, I'm just trying to recap. They did lose to Gold Coast, so that automatically would put them in okay. And they got a tight win over the Tigers. So, yeah, I'm going to put them at the very start of okay. They played pretty well down GMHBA against the Tigers. And they just absolutely came and lost it against the Suns last night. Well, last night when I'm recording this, but by the time that you guys would be watching this a few nights ago, they just, absolutely just flopped out. Like, they just were not there. Like, they were there playing. They played pretty well, but they just did not do well enough to get over the line. And Gold Coast were kicking inaccurate. They had their chance. They had their chances to win the game, and boy, did they not take them. Now, for Gold Coast, I'm going to say they beat the Power and the Cats, 2 very quality opponents that got a win somewhere in their pre-season. So that automatically will put them up at very good. Now, Gold Coast supporters, wow, What about this? And probably 3 teams that you wouldn't expect to see up there. Carlton, Freo, Gold Coast. You wouldn't expect them to be right up at the headlines. Well, there you have it. That is 3 teams that would have shocked you in the pre-season for sure. If you weren't shocked, I don't know what more could shock you. That was already a shock. And Gold Coast alone was a shock. Like, winning those 2 games, winning against the Power shocked me. And then against the Cats also shocked me. These are 2 genuine premiership contenders this year. Obviously, I do think the Cats won't get a flag. They will make the top 8, but they just won't get very far. But for Port Adelaide, a real contender, beating them, wow. Now, for the Giants, they got a win over the Swans and a win over the Pies. So, I'm going to put them in good pre-season. I'm going to put them behind the Lions. I just think the Lions had a little bit better. I think the Giants were good, though. Got a nice win over the Swannies. They got a comfortable win in the end. Winning by about that 20-25 point margin. And then coming out and doing a good job against the Pies is another important thing. And they managed to do that quite easily as well. So that is a big thing. Now, for the Hawks, they had a horrible pre-season, to say the least. They had a horrible pre-season. Losing big time against the Pies. They managed to come back for a draw, but they had to use their A-grade team pretty much the whole time while the Pies had their VFL team out there. Now, for the Hawks, it was a disappointing match in the A-grade versus A-grade Collingwood Hawthorn game. They were just horrible. The league got out 70 points at one stage in favour of the Pies. And then next week they just come and they just do not play against Richmond either. So, I don't know. I feel like that could even be very bad. A very bad pre-season for the Hawks. It was not ideal. And these were 2 genuine games that they were a chance in, and they absolutely lost it. So I'm actually going to put them in very bad. Sorry, Hawthorn fans. But yeah, I just don't think he had a good pre-season. Now, Melbourne, they smashed the Roos, but then they copped a loss to the Blues. And that almost is not okay. Now, for Carlton, amazing. You shocked them. Fantastic. For Melbourne, though, they really should have won that game. And they had a real task on them to come back. And they almost came back and actually won it. But yeah, they had a real task on their hands. Obviously smashing North in the first week. So, they're okay. Now, for North Melbourne, I'm pretty sure they had 2 losses. They competed against Sydney. And they got smashed against Melbourne. Now, I'm going to put them in bad. Now, it was actually quite a promising pre-season if you're a North Melbourne supporter. It wasn't the result that was promising, it was your players. It was Horne-Francis, it was Greenwood. It was them guys stepping up that needed it. It was Tristan, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Tristan from the Roos, they were going to call him. Tristan from the Roos, he was good. Greenwood, Horne-Francis, they had their stars and they were on show. So it does make a bad pre-season almost turn into an okay pre-season. But obviously this is based on results. So for North Melbourne it'll be bad. Now for Port Adelaide, it's going to be an okay pre-season. Now these are some quality names here that are in the UK section. Now they almost copped a loss against the Crows. And they copped a loss against the Suns. 2 bad opponents that you could say that they lost to. So it was quite disappointing pre-season for the Power, really, in the end, as they got a win over the Crows, but then they lost to the Suns, and the Suns could be rising here. And these 3 top teams here, Carlton, Freo, Gold Coast, man, they had good pre-seasons. Will they be a team that will join them? Maybe. But yeah, Port Adelaide, it was a disappointing pre-season for them. Now, for Richmond, it was a good pre-season. I'm going to put them at the very end of good, though. Now, they got, unfortunately, lost to Geelong, but they showed they're coming back this year. They showed that they are going to be back to a top 8 team this year, I reckon. They showed they're going to be back to perhaps their best. Dusty was back. And again, versus the Hawks down in Tassie, they had a comfortable lead the whole game. So, I know that I did say 1-1 will result in an okay result. I'm putting them in good, though, because I feel like they are a team that will be back into top 8 this year. A team that will be right back into things. And that is important. Now, for the Saints, they had a sad loss against the Blues and then bounced right back against the Bombers. So, yeah, it was a decent pre-season for them. Didn't have a bad pre-season, did the Essendon. Did St Kilda, sorry. They lost to the Blues in the first unofficial practice matches. Obviously, Carlton kicked 5 goals and then the Saints almost came back to cause a miracle. And then they defeated Essendon at Marvel, which was a big upset, really. as most people would have gone in thinking Essendon. But yeah, the Saints came out on top. They weren't too bad either. And now we've got Sydney, which they had... I really do actually want to say okay. And I'm going to say okay as well. Sydney had an okay pre-season. Now, obviously, clutching onto the Roos match, because the Roos came, they were close, they were breathing down Sydney's throat, and then Sydney managed to get out to a bit of a lead at the end of the game, and obviously losing to Giants did not help things either for the Sydney Swans. Wasn't a bad pre-season, but it wasn't the best either. So yeah, wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. But yeah, it was an okay pre-season. Obviously losing to Giants, crosstown rivals, but then having an okay game against the Roos finished it off. Now, for West Coast, you could probably say things couldn't have gone much worse for West Coast in their pre-season. Obviously, having injuries and all that could have made it very bad. Now, I'm going to bump it up just to bad. Obviously, last game against Freo was actually very good. They really put the pressure on. So this was not a bad pre-season. I'm actually debating okay or bad, but because they copped the 97-point loss, it must be bad. Sorry, West Coast fans, but it was actually a decent pre-season. Now, if there was one more line, I would say I'd put one in between okay and bad, and West Coast would slot in there perfectly. Now, 97-point loss to Freo in the first match was disappointing, and that's what sets this up to be bad. But second game against the Dockers, they lose by 13. That does actually turn it around. So not too bad, but they do have plenty of stars injured. Now, Western Bulldogs, they lost to the Bombers and they lost to the Lions. It was probably a catastrophe almost for Western Bulldogs. They just lost 2 of their games when they should be really getting up there. And unfortunately enough for the Doggies, it was not a good pre-season for them. They went 0-2. They lost to the Lions. They had a task they needed to do. They were kicking inaccurate. And then they lose to Bombers, and then they come and lose to the Lions. It was disappointing for the Western Bulldogs. I do think they'll bounce back, though. But congratulations to Carlton, Freo, Gold Coast for having very good pre-seasons. Those are the top 3 teams that I had having very good pre-seasons. Brisbane, GWS, Richmond for having good pre-seasons. Melbourne, Sydney, Port Adelaide, Geelong, Essendon, St Kilda, Collingwood all had okay pre-seasons. Western Bulldogs, West Coast, Adelaide, North had bad pre-seasons. And the worst pre-season of them all went to the Hawthorn Hawks, who just were out of shape. Josh Wardlow might get a round 1 debut. So, thank you guys all so much for watching. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section, as I do know this is opinionated. So you guys can let me know best and worst team of the pre-season. You guys can shoot them in the comment section. You guys can shoot them out to me and tell me who you think had the best and who you think had the worst. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so then you guys will never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much for watching. So bye everyone. Fire plays out.